Coldest Case. By Claire Rye, all rights reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author. Copyright 2025 Claire Rye.
The fog swallowed me whole the moment I stepped off the cobbled main road. The damp November air clung to my coat as I wandered through the streets of London. It crept into every crease and seam of my clothes, its damp fingers chilling my skin beneath layers of wool. I paused, adjusting the scarf around my neck, and listened. Somewhere nearby, the faint clang of a blacksmith's hammer rang out, its rhythm steady, defying the muffled stillness. A horse snorted, its hooves clopping unevenly as it pulled a creaking cart down a side street. The air smelled thick, like wet iron and soot, mingled with the earthy stench of damp hay and waste. I avoided the edge of the pavement where rivulets of murky water carried refuse toward unseen drains. A flickering gas lamp above me hissed faintly, its yellow flame barely penetrating the gloom. The light shimmered off the rain-slick cobblestones, creating ghostly reflections of buildings and passers-by. Two figures shuffled past, their heads bowed beneath battered hats. One coughed, a deep rattling sound that lingered even as it disappeared into the night air. Further ahead, a group of men in heavy coats clustered near a butcher's shop, their breaths puffing into the air as they exchanged hurried words. A crimson smear on the butcher's apron caught my eye, a splash of vibrant color against the muted tones of the street. That's when I first saw her. She stood at the edge of the lamplight, half hidden in the shadows that clung to the damp alley. The fog swirled around her ankles, a ghostly curtain that made her seem as much a specter as a person. Her dress, once black but now faded to a dull, uneven gray, hung loose on her frame. The hem frayed, dragging against the wet cobblestones, and the faint scent of mildew clung to the fabric. Over it, she wore a patched shawl, pulled tight around her shoulders as though it might shield her from more than the chill. Her boots, scuffed and misshapen, barely clung to her feet. One sole was worn through, the faintest glimpse of stocking, or perhaps bare skin, visible with every hesitant step. She shifted her weight constantly, trying to keep the chill from creeping too far into her bones. In one hand, she clutched a small bottle, its contents sloshing faintly with each movement. The other hand fidgeted with the edge of her shawl, fingers pale and chapped from the cold. A small hat perched atop her head, its brim sagging from years of use. Beneath it, strands of brown hair escaped, slicked flat by the damp air. Her face was thin, cheeks hollow and lips faintly rouged, the color stark against her sallow skin. It was a hurried application, the kind done more out of habit than vanity. The rouge couldn't hide the deep lines carved around her eyes, nor the hollows beneath them. She looked as though she had once been pretty, but now she was more repulsive than attractive. I couldn't understand why or how men would pay to be inside her frail, malnourished body. But that wasn't my concern. I was here to pay for a different thrill, one she didn't even realize she was about to give me. The longer I stared at her, the less disgusted I felt. Her eyes were her most striking feature. They flicked nervously from one figure to the next, darting between the gaslit faces of passing men and the darkened alleyways that yawned like empty mouths. There was a hard edge to her, a wariness born from too many nights like this one. But beneath that was something else, a kind of distant sadness, as though she'd long stopped hoping for anything better. She leaned against the corner of a building and glanced down the street. She saw me, and as I approached, she straightened, pulling her shawl tighter around her. The faintest flicker of a smile tugged at her lips, but didn't reach her eyes. As I drew closer, she stepped forward, her voice low and practiced. "Evenin', sir," she said, tilting her head slightly, her thin smile hovering between charm and weariness. "Looking for a bit of company tonight?" I nodded. My heart raced. I felt the adrenaline surge. This was what I had paid half a year's salary for. I followed her into the building on Miller Street, the door creaking behind us. The room was tiny. My bathroom at home was bigger. A bed, 3 tables, and a small tin bath. It wasn't what I imagined it would be, but it would have to do. We had privacy, and I had time. I was told she would be drunk. She was always drunk, but she was sober, and that made it more difficult. My mentor said these trips would need improvisation and compromise, so I took the opportunity as it presented itself and did my best. The first cut was the hardest. She didn't scream. Her beautiful eyes searched mine for answers, but she didn't scream. She opened her mouth. A sour smell escaped. I pushed the knife in deeper, and her eyes welled with tears. Still no scream. I pulled it out and rammed it in again, my fingers now slippery from the blood. She let out the smallest of whimpers. I swiveled the knife, my knuckles pressed hard against her warm belly. It was in as deep as it could go. I smiled at her as I sliced her throat. She looked confused. Then the life left her eyes. I saw the moment she stopped living. It felt so good. Then I took my time, hours of it. It was everything I'd hoped it would be. As promised, we weren't interrupted. I walked slowly out of the alleyway and disappeared into the night's mist, thinking to myself, it was worth every dollar I paid. I slept like the dead that night. A craving released, a desire fulfilled, an obsession realized. It was my first trip, but it would not be my last. The morning brought a new London. The streets were filled with the clatter of horse-drawn carriages and the hum of busy crowds. Well-dressed men and women seemed to stroll rather than walk. I could smell baked bread, delightful. The grand buildings of the city stood proudly against the bright blue sky, while the Thames glittered in the daylight. It was like the day was congratulating me. I passed a newsboy, no older than my own son, standing on the corner with a bundle of newspapers in his hands. The headline on the paper he held was impossible to ignore. Whitechapel horror? Another murder? The bold black letters seemed to scream validation at me. The vendor's eyes locked onto mine as I slowed my pace. His unshaven face weathered and tense, and his knuckles pale where they gripped the edges of the paper as if it might slip from his hands. I hesitated, the beauty of the moment exciting me, but then I moved on. I had no time to stop, not now. My departure was only 14 minutes and 35 seconds away.